Hello everyone, my name is Captain Indifferent, and welcome to my guide to items and inventory tips in Final Fantasy XIV. In this video, I'm going to be giving you an overview of items and their properties, as well as sharing some inventory configuration and management tips with you. I'll also be including some crafting and market board tips. Then, I'll also be explaining what to do with some of the more nondescript items, and give you some tools to help you determine what an item is for. There will be timestamps so you can see what I talk about and skip around as you like, as this video will be quite dense. One note before I start, this was going to be part of a massive guide that covered currency, items, inventory tips, and raid tokens, which have all been split apart to make separate videos. So if I skip talking about certain things, or something sounds out of place, that's why. With Endwalker now less than a week away, some of this will be out of date quickly, but I will be addressing what changes we know will be coming with it. I will also make short addendum videos to go over any changes we see in Endwalker, and as the patches release. As for this video, let's get into it. Now, I'm not going to go over every little thing involving items. The active help system exists for a reason after all, so I'll try to limit my information to what the game doesn't teach you, what is worth repeating, and tips I think may not be well known. Starting off, we'll go over inventory configuration. In character configuration, if you click on item settings, you can change how your inventory and retainer's inventory is displayed. You can change it from normal to expanded, which shows you 2 tabs at a time, or open all, which shows you your entire inventory when you open it. I prefer Open All, specifically because I don't like having key items and crystals split into 2 tabs, but choose whichever one you prefer. Keep in mind that you can resize the window if you like it, but are finding it takes up too much of your screen. The game defaults to having you store gear in your armory chest. I personally don't like this as I lose track of what I have in there, so I turn it off. In sort customization, you can change how items are categorized and sorted when you right-click and select Sort. You can also change the sort method so it spreads the items between the tabs depending on their category. This is just kinda wonky to me, but I can see how it would be helpful with a more full inventory. In UI settings, under Help, you can set a key to toggle between an item's normal and high quality text when hovering over it. This is nice for crafting so you can see the difference in the stats, but in general, a high quality item has about 10% better stats than a normal quality one. Speaking of high quality items, in Endwalker, the only high quality items that will be obtainable will be those that are crafted, so enemies will no longer drop high quality items and we can't gather high quality items. However, we can craft high quality items and gear. This should be very nice for our inventories. One last note here, you can also set a key to toggle the help text on and off if it's getting in the way of viewing your inventory. Let's go over how to read an item's information window before we move on. At the top, we have the item's icon, name, and what type of item it is. This symbol next to the name means it's high quality. So these meals I have shown are high quality stuffed cabbage rolls. To the right, it shows how many we have in our inventory, and you can see how many items goes into a stack. I have 2 of these, and they can stack up to 999 times before taking up 2 inventory spaces. I only have 2 in my inventory, and they are both high quality. If I had 1 normal quality and 1 high quality, they would be separate stacks. Below, you will see an item's level, if it has one, followed by the item's effects and a description of the item. The cabbage rolls are item level 125. In general, the higher an item's level, the better it is. Below the description, you can see there is a shop selling price. This means that you can buy these from a vendor somewhere, normal quality for 891 gil. You can also see the cabbage rolls sell for 14 gil when sold to a vendor. Some items and gear are unsellable, and you will not receive any gil for selling them. Now we'll look at a piece of gear. At the very top, an item or piece of gear may have the words unique and/or untradeable there. Unique means you cannot have more than 1 on your person, but you can get around this by storing 1 in your chocobo saddlebag or on a retainer. Oh yeah, side note, make sure you're using your chocobo saddlebags once you get your chocobo. It's like 2 extra bags, but they can only be opened outside of a duty. Some items are unique, like treasure maps, but using the saddlebags, you can carry multiple this way, as items in the saddlebags aren't counted as in your inventory. Untradeable is like it sounds. You cannot trade the item to another player or sell it on the market board. Since we're looking at a weapon now, it also tells you its damage, auto attack damage, and delay between auto attacks. On armor, this will show defense and magic defense. Honestly, you can ignore these aside from item level and physical damage. If those 2 values are higher than another weapon, it is a better overall weapon 99% of the time. You can also just hit recommended gear on your character tab, and the game will just equip what it thinks is best for you from the gear in your armory chest. Stat bonuses are below, along with materia, which are like gems you can affix that increase secondary stats like critical hit. Crafting and repairs shows you what crafting class is required to repair the item and what your level is for that class. Condition is pretty self-explanatory. If it reaches 0%, the item is broken and doesn't benefit you. Vendors can repair them if you can't do so yourself, but if you do repair your own gear, you can get the condition above 100% so that it will last you longer. Spirit Bond is how you get materia. Once you unlock the ability to extract materia, when the gear reaches 100%, you can right-click and extract materia, which will award you with a single materia and reset the Spirit Bond to 0%. Repair level tells you what level your class has to be to repair the item, and materials is what grade of dark matter you need to repair it. Dark matter is a reagent required for self-repairs, and all grades can be bought from vendors or traded for Grand Company seals or wolf marks. Quick repairs tells you how much gil it costs for a vendor to repair your gear. Materia melding is what level your highest crafter needs to be to meld materia to the gear yourself, without using a materia melder NPC. Extractable says if you can extract materia from it, projectable is if you can use the item for a glamour, and desynthesizable is whether or not you can desynthesize it. As long as you have desynthesis unlocked and the requisite crafter class, you can desynth anything regardless of its item level. But if your desynth rating is equal to or above the rating shown, you will have a better chance of receiving extra items for it. Lastly, at the very bottom, you can see that this gear is unsellable, which means you will not get gil for selling it to a vendor. It is also market prohibited, so you can't sell it on the market board. Let's move on to some inventory management tips. If you're in the habit of holding onto everything because you plan on leveling the crafting classes someday, I'm sure your inventory or retainers look something like mine do. Hopefully this will help you begin to clear some breathing room. There are a couple useful tools you can access by just right-clicking on an item. One such tool is Search for Item, which will run a search for other instances of the item through your inventory, armory chest, saddlebags, armoire, glamour dresser, and all of your retainers. For example, if you had some iron ingots split between your 2 retainers and your inventory, you could stack them all together and save 2 inventory slots. You can also use this to see if you already own a certain piece of gear, or to see if you have ingredients for crafting log recipes without scrounging through your retainers. There is also a text command for this if you know what you're looking for, but don't have the item available to right-click. You would type /isearch space, then the item you're looking for. For example, /isearch iron will bring up whatever items you have that contain the word iron. You can then use the right-click options through the item links in chat, like this next one. If an item doesn't show up, you don't have it. One more note regarding this before moving on. I mentioned this before, but if you don't plan on using high-quality base crafting materials like bone, skins, logs, ore, plants, etc. before Endwalker, go ahead and lower them to normal quality now to stack them and save space. Only crafted materials such as bolts of cloth, ingots, leather, formulas, and the like will have any added effects when crafting from then on. The other useful tool is that you can right-click on an item and select Search Recipes using this material. This will open up a window that shows you which crafting recipes use the selected item. There are a few great things about this system. 1. You don't have to have any crafting classes unlocked to use it. 2. You can repeat the search with any item that is listed to see if it is used to craft something else. And 3. If you have the crafting class unlocked, you can open the crafting log right to the recipe to make it or see what else is needed. This is something you can make great use of when cleaning up your inventory or trying to make the most gil with the items you have on hand. This will demystify a large amount of items you may come across, so try it out on anything you're not sure of. If you hit a dead end and the item is not equipable or otherwise usable, it is likely a turn-in or trade-in of some kind. In this case, you can use a site like Garland Tools to find out exactly what it is used for to help decide what you want to do with it. Another tip: if you find yourself with too little inventory or retainer space and are trying to decide on what to keep or get rid of, try putting a couple rules into place. For example, tell yourself it's okay to sell something on the market board, or just vendor if the market price is too low, if the total value of the item or stack of items is less than, say, 5 to 10,000 gil. If you can't decide on a general price range, check what the market price is and ask yourself if you'd be willing to pay that price to reacquire the item. If not, keep the item. Maybe as a caveat, add that if an item is hard or a pain to obtain, it's okay to keep, even if it doesn't sell for a whole lot. Set whatever rules you like for yourself that help work towards your goals. Now, before I get into the rest of the tips, I'd like to add that the main function of a lot of the items you'll likely end up stockpiling are used for crafting. If you don't care about crafting at all, just start getting rid of things by selling them on the market board. But don't run off just yet. I have some tips for you regarding that later on, so skip ahead if that applies to you. For now, however, we're going to dip into how to use crafting to clear up your inventory. Since we were just speaking of the crafting list, while we're in there are two other tools you can make use of. Right-clicking on an item and selecting a recipe tree will open up a window like this, showing you everything you need to craft that item, and if you have the items available in your inventory or retainers. For instance, to craft this cedar crook, I need 3 wind crystals, 2 ice crystals, a cedar branch, yeti fang, electrum ingot, and archaeornis leather. It also tells me what I need to make the ingot and leather, so I can see that I have everything I need to make this right now with the materials I have stored with my retainers. The other tool you can use is the raw materials list, which you can open by right-clicking an item and selecting it in the crafting list, or by selecting it from the top right of the recipe tree. This essentially conveys the same information, but it's a little more compact. You can also choose to only display the materials you do not have, so it only displays what you need to buy or gather to complete the item. While we're in the crafting log, you can also click this cog and select Hide Completed Recipes. This is useful if you decided to use your items to craft your way through the log for some achievements or just for completion's sake. One note to that effect, only the main list of level-based recipes and the housing recipes count towards completing the crafting log. So if that's your only goal, don't waste time gathering materials for the master recipes. So say you plan on crafting and think to yourself, well, I wonder how much mithril ore I would need to craft everything on the crafting log. I was going to share a more drawn-out way and an easier way, but for the sake of time, we'll just stick with the easy way. I use FFXIVCrafting.com, and to find the answer to that question, I would go to crafting in the upper right corner. Type in the level range you're curious about. In this case, since we want to know for every recipe, we'll leave start at 1 and end at 80, then control-click all of the crafting classes. Make sure to include any other categories you wish to include, like furniture and housing, and click Synthesize. Provided it doesn't crash the site, it should bring up a list of everything you need, and eventually populate how many of each item you need. Just scroll down, or better yet, Control F and type whichever item you're curious about, ignoring the crushing feeling of dread as you see just how many items are needed, and it will show you how many of that item you need to gather. Here we find our answer. We need 1,487 mithril ore to craft everything in the crafting log once. With this list generated, you can also browse through the other items to see the amounts you need, how many of which items you must craft, and so forth. This is a great site to use for crafting, and you can use it in other ways too. It's also awesome to just search a smaller level range if you want to find out what materials you need to complete those levels specifically. You can also make a crafting list, like if you wanted to cash in on crafting leaf quests before they reduce the earnings in Endwalker, and want to make, say, 900 coffee biscuits. You can type that in and find out what you need to make it happen. It has some other nifty features. I recommend you play around with it if you're planning to craft. Moving on, let's talk about buying items on the market board versus buying things from a vendor. First, a quick tip about shopping on the market board. If you're looking through items to buy on the market board, you can tell pretty quickly whether or not it is being marked up. Looking at iron ore, for example, you can see that the cheapest stacks are being sold for 198 gil per ore. Since iron ore has a shop selling price, we know it could be bought from a vendor for only 18 gil per ore. Let's assume I don't know where this vendor is and check Garland Tools. It shows that Summerweb and Limbs and Laminza and material suppliers, the ones you can hire for your house or apartment, sell these. So find one of them and buy it there instead if you're going to pay gil for them. This works for gear as well, but gear sold by vendors is always normal quality. So if the extra stat boost is worth the extra gil, the market board may be the way to go for you. Some items will have restricted in parentheses after the shop selling price. In these cases, the vendor is likely a Beast Tribe vendor or is unlocked in other side content like the Doman Enclave. As far as using the market board to sell things, you do so by summoning your retainer and having them sell it. Each retainer can sell up to 20 items at the same time. Deciding what to sell depends on what you have available to you. If you craft, you can determine what you can make and check its price and demand on the market board to see if it's better to sell the completed item or its materials. It really depends, and sometimes you just have to do your research. Let's get started by right-clicking on an item to sell and clicking Put Up for Sale. When having your retainer sell an item, you always want to click on Compare Prices at the top right of the Adjust Price window. This will show what other sellers currently have the item listed for. For example, the cheapest priced mithril ore is selling for 170 each. If you've played WoW or another MMO with an auction house or similar system, you probably know about undercutting, which is selling an item for less than the lowest price currently to have a better chance of selling. This is pretty frowned upon in Final Fantasy XIV particularly, since it can drop the value of the item for everyone. The main argument against undercutting is this. Say I were to list this mithril ore for 170 gil. it would be placed at the top of the listing as the first option because I was the most recent seller. So it makes no sense to undercut if you're selling it for the same price, since all it does is depreciate the value of the item, and you'll still be the first option available to buyers anyway. Another thing to check while selling is the item's sale history. This shows the last 20 sales of the item, and lists when and for what price the item sold at. This is nice for viewing trends and to gauge the demand of an item for yourself. This is especially useful if the item you're trying to sell has no current competition. This way, you can see what the last price it sold for, or even better, see the highest it sold for recently, so you can list it at that price. Another helpful tip is that if you find a craftable item that sells particularly well, you can favorite the recipe on the crafting list to sell again later. Well, we've gone over using the market board now. But Cap, who says I want to sell my stuff? I'm going to use these 3 ears of corn someday. Well, if you truly feel that way, that's your choice. You could literally get those ears of corn back in 2 seconds, though. Heck, you could probably farm up 100 in 4 minutes if you work quickly and drink a cordial. The point I'm trying to make is, if your inventory is super full, and you're holding on to items that are hardly worth anything, and you can farm them back in 1 to 10 minutes, then why agonize over what to keep? Put the corn down. Make something with it, or sell it to someone who needs it, or vendor it if neither of those options are worth it. Please do not throw away your relic weapons to clear room instead of the corn you can toss first. That goes for the rest of your items too. If they're just sitting there and you can't store any more items, it's time to work on your crafting and clearing some room, or start putting things up on the market board. What's that, you say? You don't even know what some of these items do? It doesn't tell you what it's for at all? Well, I guess it's time for part 2. In part 2, I'll go over those nondescript items and help you figure out what they do. If you want a TLDR now though, since I've already mentioned garland tools, it's where I personally go to find out what things do, where they come from, and what they're for. It's not perfect, but it's close. I highly suggest you bookmark it for reference. Well, that's going to do it for part 1. I hope you learned something and enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought of it, or if you have any questions in the comments, or join my Discord. The link will be in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in part 2. Until then, take care, Warriors of Light.